biggest struggle is constant student talking, especially during the required morning meetings. So students aren't listening to each other, they're talking over each other. The meetings are running long because she's trying to correct everybody all the time and repeat the reminders, and then other people are trying to get their words in. It's kind of a little chaotic and a little bit difficult every morning to start that way. So her admin has told her she needs to be more assertive, but she also doesn't want to yell. There have been some times where she's just gotten impatient with kids, but generally she keeps it pretty calm. But she wants to work on reducing the talking, keeping the routines moving, rebuilding student respect, and recognizing that that's going to be harder because it's the middle of the year, and that's true as well. But one of the things that stood out to me, and I think you even started to recognize it as you were typing up some of the details you shared, is you give consequence, or I'm sorry, you give warning and warning and warning and warning and warning and just repeated reminders until finally you reach the consequence point. But your classroom norm sounds like it's been set to where kids know they don't have to listen until you have this consequence like, no, now we're done. Where they knew before they didn't have to listen, they didn't have to respond because it was just repeat warning, without anything ever happening until significantly into the issue. And so I think that I know you mentioned a lot of different things that you're trying to work through and with your lesson planning and everything as well, but I think that's your really, really big key that needs to be something that you're trying to develop a habit of. Is you give a set number of warnings, you decide however many that is. We're going to give you a link to the yellow card talk where Linda does yellow cards that can work really well. I'll have some other links in there as well for some of the desk map stuff that I've used for things that are effective, but you're going to give a set number of warnings and then there's a consequence. And I wouldn't work on revamping your consequences yet because right now, that's not your biggest problem. Your biggest problem is you just don't get to them in time. You don't get to them until it's a huge issue. You need to stop it much earlier, and that will really help.
Yeah, and I was Becky and I were kind of looking at yours before, and that's what I was seeing too. I was seeing just how um yes, I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I agree with that completely, where it's like, rather than basically, and just to explain what's happening, when you kind of say over and over what to do, but like they're not doing it, and when you allow students to not do what you say, like there was one thing you said, I have students that refuse to sit by each other when I ask them to move. Like, so basically there's classroom culture is established where you say stuff and they ignore you. You tell them to stop and they don't. You tell them to move and they just say, I'm not going to. So it's that kind of culture just makes everything really, really hard. And I will say it is hard to turn around mid-year for sure. Okay. So just recognizing like this is not going to be a smooth turnaround, but also recognizing like almost even more important than turning this year around is you learning how to be assertive up front, like learning how to, like Becky said, be consistent. Like every time this happens, I do the same thing. And I don't wait till I'm mad. Like I start with the first warnings right away. Like you practicing and getting good at that will start to turn the ship slowly. So, and we have so many tools in classroom management 101 to try to help it turn a little bit more quickly. But what's happening is you are building your skills so that you're getting better and better and better. And when you start a new school year with that from the beginning, your students aren't going to refuse to do stuff because you're not going to put up with that. And you're not going to put up with it the first time it happens. And they're going to pick up on that right away. And they're not going to try that kind of stuff. Like, does that make sense? I'm not saying you don't have any discipline issues. You'll always have discipline issues. But when you're on each one, students pick up on that and they don't try nearly as much. And there's like a base level of, yeah, I can't refuse to do what the teacher told me to do. So I guess, yeah, encouragement to keep going in the course. But specifically with this talking issue, I would skip to the lesson Becky's going to give you on a warning system. That's a system that we found works pretty well across the board, especially yeah, you fourth grade's perfect for fourth grade, perfect for what you're talking about. It allows you to give warnings without any consequences right away, but they'll come quickly then if students are just refusing to listen. And so I think that consistency, and then I don't know if you were here when we talked about before, you got to stick with the system really consistently as you can for 2 weeks before you say it's not working. Because students are gonna, I'll say it again, they're gonna flop. It's like reeling in a fish. They're gonna flop. They're not gonna like it. They're gonna be all upset. But the more consistent you are, then they'll give it a week or two. They'll be set. Okay, okay, this is what we're doing.